They say in Tuscany that farmers take a little of everything from the land. A little corn, a little oil, a little wine, and little changes. Scanning the rise and fall of this distinctive rural scenery, it seems familiar. It is in the background of countless paintings of Italy. Yet the modern world is here, a modern world that began to unfold in the greatest of all Tuscan cities. Florence. Few cities can boast such a staggering array of artistic riches. The city was built by merchant bankers whose wealth backed their talent. From the beginning of the 15th century and for almost 300 years, Florence flourished. And the Renaissance of Florence flowered into the Renaissance of Europe. The Fountain of Neptune is not, according to the Florentines, one of their best statues. But it does mark what has been the civic heart of the city since the Middle Ages, the Piazza della Signoria. Beneath this gloriously painted ceiling in the Palazzo Vecchio once sat the Cinquecento, the 500 men who governed the Florentine Republic. Now the palazzo houses the town council, whose battles are usually less violent than those of the frescoes by Vasari, a chronicle of the ruling Medici family's exploits. Lining the walls are the muscular works of the Renaissance sculptors, including Michelangelo's Victory. For a brief period, when Italy was united, the first parliament was held here. Vasari, who actually coined the term Renaissance, also masterminded the decoration of this room for the Grand Duke Francesco I de' Medici. The walls and ceilings are covered with paintings. Bronzini's portrait of a bejeweled Eleanor de' Medici. An interior like this is simply too much to take in at a glance. There is so much marvelous detail. As the palazzo is still lived in, opening times are erratic, but it's worth making an effort to see it. Florentines have a love-hate relationship with their river, the Arno. It has brought both great fortune and great destruction, flooding unpredictably and causing terrible damage. All except one of its bridges were blown up by the German army in retreat in 1944, but each has been restored to its former glory. Santa Trinita is considered to be the most harmonious. The most famous, of course, is the Ponte Vecchio, symbol of Florence since the 14th century, and sole survivor of World War II. More than a bridge, the Ponte Vecchio is a medieval shopping mall and one of the city's main attractions. It began with butcher shops, but in Medici times, jewelers and goldsmiths took it over. They and the souvenir stalls still occupy it today, their back rooms clinging like barnacles to the bridge's structure. Most of Florence's great churches have a great piazza to match. The statue of Dante stands in Santa Croce, However, his tomb rests in Ravenna. Santa Maria Novella has an acre of space opposite the railway station. But the dramatically simple exterior of Santo Spirito is tucked away among the narrow streets of the Oltrarno district. Touched by the genius of Brunelleschi, it's one of the finest examples of pure Renaissance architecture and art. This is a city where the greatest ornamentation is on the inside. Stained glass windows glow like jewels, a mix of art and craftsmanship, the essence of Florentine decoration. Today's craftsmen and women work with a sense of continuity and enormous pride in their city's identity. For the same skills that were used to create things of beauty and originality centuries ago are still needed to maintain them. Roof repairs can't wait when buildings contain artworks in every art history book. For lovers of art, Florence is a place of pilgrimage, and this is high on the list of shrines, San Lorenzo, the great religious monument to the Medici family. San Lorenzo is not merely itself a masterpiece. It's a treasure house of masterpieces. The church was designed by Brunelleschi, the library by Michelangelo, and two amazing bronze pulpits by Donatello, with dramatic bas-reliefs depicting episodes from the Gospels. San Lorenzo epitomizes the Renaissance ideal of unity and diversity. Michelangelo worked long and hard here, but with a sense of bitterness, for by this time the best of the Medicis had gone, and their republic was destroyed, ironically, by a Medici pope. Fittingly, just outside this memorial to the de' Medici dynasty of merchant bankers thrives one of the busiest street markets, and the oldest, the San Lorenzo Market. Here, the overwhelming smell is of leather. This is the place to head for if you want a bargain belt, bag, or leather jacket. Another compulsory stop is Micheloso's Santa Semia Annunziata and the Ospedale degli Indocenti by Brunelleschi, the old foundlings' orphanage and hospital for abandoned babies. It is extraordinarily beautiful. This is considered to be one of the most important sites of the Florentine Renaissance for its piazza, courtyards, cloisters, and glazed terracotta rondels by Della Robbia. This was, in fact, the first orphanage in Europe. It would, of course, be incomplete without a Medici statue. This one of the Grand Duke Ferdinand I on horseback completes the harmony of the piazza. One of the true delights of Florence is taking some of it away with you. Mementos of excellent quality are a byproduct of the work done by the restorers. You can often watch them working in the back corners of medieval factories and shops, painstakingly reviving the faded or damaged beauty of priceless artworks. It's much to the credit of this army of artisans that within weeks of the devastating flood disaster of 1966, the city's treasures were rescued from ruin, and the restoration work was underway. Florence's crowning glory is the mighty cupola of Santa Maria del Fiore, more often called the Duomo. Each year, millions of visitors come to marvel at this supreme example of Italian Gothic. Giotto's slender campanile in matching green, pink, and white marble was actually built 100 years earlier. One of the most elegant bell towers in Italy, it was a favorite of the author and critic Ruskin, who believed no other building in the world combined such a satisfying balance of beauty and power. Climbing the campanile is the only way you can get an overview of the Duomo. From below, you're so hemmed in by the surrounding piazza, it's possible only to see the details. The 12th century baptistry is the city's oldest building and served as the cathedral before the Duomo was built next to it. Superb Venetian mosaics cover the dome, scenes from the Creation, the life of St. John, and the Last Judgment. It was here that the poet Dante was baptized. His Divine Comedy is commemorated by Michelino's frescoes, Hell and Purgatory, depicted as a rocky pinnacle which is tiered like a wedding cake. The monuments of Florence, as they were and still are, and in the center, Dante himself explaining his epic work. The best antidote to a surfeit of art and architecture is, of course, shopping. Florence is a shopper's paradise. Every 2 years, the city holds a mega antique fair, but at any time there's no shortage of antiques and treasures to browse among in the Oltrarno. Armani or Ferragamo, Cerruti or Gucci, all you need is money. Florence has one flaw. There's no public seating, nowhere to sit down without having to buy a meal or a cappuccino. Except perhaps in the gardens of the Pitti Palace, where it is possible to relax on the grass. The Pitti was not only the grand ducal residence of the Medici, but for 6 years the royal palace of United Italy. Today it is a vast museum. Further out on the rim of town is the Belvedere Fort, an imposing 16th century barracks. Today, it offers the most stunning panorama of Florence's cupolas and campaniles in the setting of the surrounding hills of Tuscany. Close by stands the Roman church of San Miniato. Rebuilt in Romanesque style, it has a wonderful Byzantine interior. fabulous mosaics, inlaid marble, frescoes, and sculptures. Once, when under attack from Spanish invaders, the church was saved by none other than Michelangelo. In charge of the city's defenses, he had a temporary fort built around it. San Miniato is said to be an early Christian martyr who is believed to have carried his severed head up to the spot where the church now stands. The eagle was the emblem of the Cloth Merchants Guild, who used to administer San Miniato, a case of the world supporting the spiritual. These are only some of the treasures of Florence. There are other gems scattered among the hills of Tuscany, places it would be a shame to miss when they're within an hour or so's drive by bus or car. These villages and towns were also influenced to some degree by the Renaissance. The grand mansions on the outskirts of Lucca, for instance, are virtual copies of the Medici villas. For centuries, Lucca was the capital of Tuscany. It was the birthplace of the man who wrote some of the world's best melodies, Puccini. Its most remarkable architectural feature is its circular piazza, once a Roman amphitheater. There is no need to wonder what Pisa is famous for. The Leaning Tower is the most popular tourist destination in all of Italy. They say climbing its 294 steps, balancing on precarious narrow ledges, was an unforgettable experience. Unfortunately, the tower is now closed. But why worry? The tower's been on the tilt since it went up in the 12th century. It's now 13 feet from vertical at the top, and it's still standing. On the way from here to there, it's tempting to linger among the vineyards of Chianti country, to visit the producers of its well-known wine. You can taste it, buy a case if you can carry it home, and even stay a night or two. Many of the wineries welcome tourists, offering simple rooms and marvelous food to go with the wine. And it's less expensive than staying in Florence. Chianti itself is a relatively recent invention, a blend of 4 grape varieties in a formula devised in the mid-18th century. While it may be the best known, it's not the only Tuscan wine. The label to look for if you want to try the finest in Italy is Brunello. And if you don't drink at all, the grapes themselves are delicious. Rising above the vines and olive groves of Vernaccia is Tuscany's Manhattan, the towers of San Gimignano. This dramatic medieval hill town once had 72 skyscrapers, each a reflection of its owner's wealth and pride. Only 14 still stand. Feudal squabbles among the nobility accounted for some of San Gimignano's disintegration, but the Black Death hit it hardest. This terrible plague devastated the population in the 14th century and sent the city into a decline. It remains a town in a time warp, with a maze of picturesque cobbled streets that are inevitably choked with tourists during the summer. The Renaissance bypassed San Gimignano, but artistically it's by no means a disappointment. The cathedral-sized Collegiata, an immense Romanesque cavern of color, can stop you in your tracks. The walls are filled with frescoes. In an age when few of the common people could read, these widescreen versions of the Old and New Testaments were a way of teaching the Bible stories, as well as church propaganda. They reflect the religion of the day with a strong accent on the wages of sin. The painter of these crucifixion scenes, Barna di Siena, came to a sad end himself. In the final stages of his fresco marathon, he fell off the scaffolding and died. It's worthwhile to consider how often the course of history has been altered, not by wars or natural disasters, but by disease. Perhaps if San Gimignano had escaped the Black Death, it might have rivaled Florence or nearby Siena. Between Florence and Siena, it's less than an hour by road, perhaps a day's ride in centuries gone by, but the two couldn't be more different. A medieval town, Siena sponsors a medieval event that still explodes in the heart of the city, once in July, once in August. The Palio, a horse race that's not for the faint-hearted. 10 bareback riders, each representing one of the city's wards. The rivalry is fierce, the race downright dangerous, and the atmosphere wild with emotion. During the rest of the year, things are a little quieter. Even without the horses, the Campo, as Siena's main piazza is called, is one of the most charismatic city spaces in Europe. Shaped like a lopsided oval, its cobbles slope downwards to the portals of the Palazzo Pubblico. Siena's mellow rose-colored bricks and the vertical lines of its Gothic architecture are in total contrast to Florence. It's often said to be a more feminine city, a foil to the masculinity of Florence. Yet to outsiders, there are similarities. A town hall that, as well as being the seat of local government, is again a gallery of masterpieces, among them some beautiful Madonnas. There is also Simone Martini's Guido-Riccio. No painting better evokes the fairy tale quality of the Tuscan landscape. The haughty condottiero trotting on his magnificently dressed horse is a familiar image, often reproduced on tea trays and cookie tins. Also in the Palazzo are Ambrogio Lorenzetti's frescoes of the effects of good and bad government, the largest paintings of the Middle Ages with a non-religious theme. Still, they have a moral message, since good government is seen to prevail over bad. Seeing these rooftops, need anyone wonder how the artist's color of burnt sienna got its name? If you have time for only 2 of Sienna's sights, the second has to be its Duomo. If anything, it's more splendid than Florence's. The composer Wagner is said to have burst into tears at this sheer abundance of creativity. Inside, beneath a forest of black and white marble pillars, the marble floor is inlaid with 56 panels of Bible stories. Pisano's octagonal pulpit is a landmark in the history of art, a Gothic tour de force. To many, the most dazzling part of the Duomo is the library, with its pictorial narrative of the life of Archbishop Piccolomini, including his visit to see James I of Scotland. The brilliance of these paintings is all the more impressive because they've never had to be restored. Siena, Lucca, Pisa, San Gimignano, and the phenomenon of Florence and the Renaissance. A golden age when material wealth was achieved as much with blood and cruelty as by a talent for business. The legacy of those centuries is a pattern of living that has influenced the whole of Western civilization, and the treasures of Tuscany that remain for everyone to share. The Emmy Award-winning International Video Network is proud to present Super Cities, a series of 26 half-hour programs circumventing the globe to the most exciting and fascinating places. Super Cities brings the world's best-loved cities to life. Discover the art, the food, and the people that make each city a super city. For the name of a Super Cities video dealer near you, or to order another Super Cities video, call toll-free 1-800-699-4486, extension 802.